Okay, good afternoon to all. I just want to take this time to welcome our dynamic audience and our supporters to this discussion. This is, if I look at it and you all read and see that this is a significant discussion. And the topic today is the power of one vote, the future of Africa, emphasis on Liberia. Africa actually being the second largest and most populous continent on the earth. It's a home to diverse cultures, vibrant economies, and it is a rapidly changing political landscape. What a topic and what a dynamic team that we've put together to discuss these issues and give you some responses, some perspective as you gear towards knowing the fact that your one vote is very, very significant. And it's very important that part of our goal today here is to exploit and present to you all why one vote or your vote, it matters a lot when it comes to election. It matters a lot when it comes to the future of our country, Liberia. So we have individuals here, professional individuals. They've taken their time off their busy schedule this beautiful sunny Sunday to come and provide information for you all to know that it's important that you vote and that your votes are very, very important. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go around the table. It's 4:34, and we have, we're going to make sure to finish on time, and that is 6:30 or finish before time. So we're going to go around the table to introduce ourselves quickly, just brief introduction, and then we will start the discuss the power of one vote, the future of Africa, emphasis on Liberia. So I will start with our lady first, Dr. Caroline Brople Davis.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Good afternoon, colleagues. I just want to say I am grateful for this opportunity. I am Caroline Brople Davis. I am a Liberian. I immigrated to the United States in 1994. I am an educator. I educate children as well as adults. I'm married. I have 4 children, 6 grandchildren, and looking forward to more.
Okay, thank you so much. I see that we quickly have another lady who she is no stranger. She's a supporter and a member of this particular group. I will just give her the opportunity quickly to just briefly introduce herself. And she's no other than Yesenia. Yesenia, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll go, and then we'll just ask the men to do the same.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Lucy. It's great being here with your honorable guests, including Doc. I see. I'm here to discuss Liberia. Most of you know, I live and breathe Liberia, so it's good to be here. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much, Cindy. We'll go quickly to our own Gregory Simpkins. Greg, are you there? Greg, we're not hearing you. Are you? We're asking you to please briefly introduce yourself. Okay, while Greg is trying to come on, we'll move quickly to Mr. Felix Wilson, our own member and our own member of this team.
Good afternoon to all of you, our esteemed panelists, and our dear hosts, Miss Lucy Wilson Gear. I am delighted to be a part of this body in this panel discussion today. Really honored. And I am
Yes.
married. I have three children, um, a girl and two boys. I'm a professional by trade, work for Booz Allen Hamilton, a government contractor here in the U.S., as a program financial analyst. And I am a philanthropist at heart. And I like to tell people whenever I have an opportunity to talk about Liberia, I use our simple English term. I am a Peking with a mad love for Liberia. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Felix. So we're just gonna go. I don't know, Mr. Greg, are you ready to introduce yourself? Okay. So we're just gonna move quickly to Mr. Honorable Ahmed Fiawu. You can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please. Honorable Fiawu, we're not hearing you. Okay. So we're gonna move to Dr. Arlene White while the others are trying to find their way.
Well, good evening or good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see everybody. And Lucy, thanks as always for putting this together. It gets better and better every time, and this is so valuable to Liberia, and particularly with the region right now. Sierra Leone's undergoing their elections now, and in October there'll be a presidential and general election in Liberia. So this is probably one of the most consequential times, I think, in Liberia's lifetime. And as somebody that's been working on the continent for the past 20 years, particularly focused on West Africa and Liberia, bringing justice and accountability, we hope that justice comes true this October, and these will be free and fair elections. And we hope to have as many election observers over there as possible to make sure that this is transparent for everybody involved. So I'm delighted to be here today, and thank you so much. Good to see all my friends and colleagues up there. Yacinda, you down here, and how are you doing up on the top? Thanks. And I hope we get Greg. Greg, where are you, brother?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I think he's in Sierra Leone. It looks like anyway. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so we just want to take this time to say thank you and welcome to the Liberian View, where we discuss hot topics and issues that are very pertinent to our country and Africa. And I don't know what's happening to Greg, but I'm hoping that you're hearing us. But the show must go on, and I know Greg will join us soon. So to start with the discussion, we're going to give each 5 to 6, 7 minutes each to just briefly give us from your perspective, what are you looking at the historical, religious aspect, developmental aspect of it, the importance of the power of one vote, the future of Africa, the emphasis on Liberia. We are hoping that, especially Greg, we're hoping that you'll be able to join us. Having said that, I will quickly give the floor because I know that some of you don't have the time, but we'll just ask Dr. Caroline to start the discussion. As we stated, we're giving each 5 to 6, 7 minutes, and then questions will follow after each individual on the platform have deliberated after everyone have given their own opinion when it comes to the subject matter. So, Dr. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Okay, once again, thank you so much, Lucy. And like I said, I'm grateful to be here. I wrote down my thoughts because I haven't done this before. This is my first time. So I wrote down my ideas, my thoughts, and I'm just going to read. And then when we come to the discussion part, I will be open for questions. Is that okay?
That's very okay, but we all just have like 5 to 7 minutes each. That's fine.
Absolutely. This is going to take me, I think, less than 5 minutes what I wrote.
Thank you.
Okay. So I started off by looking at when I got the information from you about the power of one person, one vote. There were several thoughts that came to my mind. And so when I started to put down my thoughts, the first thing we want to look at is what voting is and why it's important. And I know all of us on this line, in this event, we know what voting is, but because we have an audience that's going to be listening, a wide variety of audience, so that's why I wrote down my thoughts to be very clear. Voting is the action or process of indicating choice, opinion, or will on a question, such as the choosing of a candidate by or as if by some organized means, such as a ballot. The right to vote is fundamental to any nation's democracy and should be guaranteed to every citizen. In a democracy, each adult citizen should have the right to vote, and each vote must have equal value. It expresses that individuals should have equal representation in voting. Every citizen in a democracy must understand that voting is a constitutional right and a responsibility. By voting, citizens are participating in the democratic process. Citizen votes for leaders to represent them and their ideas, and the leaders support citizens' interests. According to Nelson Mandela, voting is the cornerstone of a democratic and free society. One person, one vote. President Barack Obama reiterated this sentiment by reminding Americans that their election matters to everyone. So let's look at voting in Africa. Voting in Africa has progressed from a single party voting system to multi party elections. Studies show that there are numerous countries in Africa that honor the rule of law and engage in free and fair elections. Countries such as Senegal, Mauritius, Botswana, South Africa have come to embody the best trend on the continent. These countries have many things in common, including an active civil society, a vibrant and free press, an independent electoral body, a competitive political landscape, and a widely shared respect for the rule of law. It is important to note that really do protests proceed or follow proclamations of election results. Peaceful handovers of power following an opposition victory are not uncommon. These political systems are a result of a long and negotiated compromise amongst the elites of those countries. These examples are great for our continent. However, a study by the United Nations shows that elections in post-war Africa pose numerous challenges for the continent. According to the UN, while some post-war elections have helped entrench democracy, others may mark a continuation of war by other means. Given the many weaknesses of these countries' systems, the fierce competition that often marks their election can sometimes lead to unrest and violent conflict. Competitive elections have not always turned out well in some African countries. Some show that elections have actually further polarized ethnic groups and led to violent conflict. So, where do we go from here? In some of these post war countries in Africa, including Liberia, there is what I call a struggling majority. The struggling majority is everyday folks who vote to elect leaders who will look out for them and their interests. However, some of those leaders are looking out for themselves while the majority of their citizens suffer unbearable economic hardship and various forms of injustices. So, where do we go from here? How do we promote the importance of one person, one vote? I believe that several steps can be taken to ensure our electoral process across Africa is free and fair. Studies show that implementation of the following steps can ensure that the vote of every individual is respected and valued. One, stop the perpetuation of strongman syndrome. What is strongman syndrome? It is having the same leader in office for a decade or more. Most countries in Africa have have most leaders in Africa that have been in office for a decade or more. These are strong men who tend to have a stronghold over their countries. They are doing nothing new to move the continent or their specific countries forward other than to hold on to power. Many on the continent, including Liberia, want to perpetuate these so-called strongmen, many of whom are dictators, selfish, and do not care for the people who elected them. It is time to stop perpetuating the strong men who do not seek the interests of the countries they lead. They do nothing to move their countries forward, and many of them are in it literally to enrich themselves overnight at the expense of the struggling majority. We must design and engage in credible election to ensure the vote of each person is valued. Several things must be put in place. Many international organizations, including the UN, have identified a number of best practices drawing on both exemplary elections and more challenging cases. These There seems to be general agreement about the factors that can help provide credible elections. Chief among these is the establishment of a truly independent and impartial electoral commission. Such an institution can act as a referee during elections, and its independence and impartiality can enhance citizen confidence in the process. Commissions should act in a transparent manner and engage with all actors involved in elections. In addition, nonpartisan domestic and foreign election observers nonpartisan can provide an impartial assessment of the electoral process, further helping citizens access its legitimacy. The media should be able to provide balanced coverage of all candidates and parties. Civil society groups should be active in issues ranging from voter education to the promotion of election dialogue and initiatives to diffuse conflicts. Throughout the electoral process, security personnel must remain neutral. Competing political parties and candidates must show willingness to conduct themselves peacefully and fairly. Incumbent leaders must set a tone of tolerance and respect for the election process. So, the importance of one vote, I think it is important in a democracy that every citizen should understand the power of their vote. History has shown that one vote can make a difference. Here are some examples. In the 1800s, Thomas Jefferson was elected president by one vote in the House of Representatives after a tie in the Electoral College. In 1824, Andrew Jackson won the presidential popular vote, but lost by one vote in the House of Representatives to John Quincy Adams after an electoral college deadlock. In 1868, President Andrew Johnson was impeached but not convicted because the Senate was one vote shy of the necessary two-thirds required. In 1994, 1.1 votes per precinct in Alaska elected Tony Knowles as governor and Fred Omer as lieutenant governor in that state. In 1961, in Africa, Zanzibar's general election, the Afro Shirazi Party won the district of Shasha and thus the most legislative seat by a vote of 1,538 to 1,537. Just one vote made the difference. To conclude, one vote can make a difference. The power of one person, one vote is real. Hence, let's mobilize our people in Africa, Liberia in particular, to get out and vote. And as they do, let every vote be respected and valued. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to take this time to say thank you so, so much, Dr. Davis, for that, because this particular discuss for today, if I am here and I'm wondering what is the significance of my vote, or I am in Liberia or other African countries, countries all over the world, someone is voting, should be voting, should have registered already to vote, and you're saying that, I don't know where I placed my voter's registration card, I don't want to vote. In fact, it will not even make a difference. After the discussion, this discuss, you will know and understand why your vote as an individual is important and how it shapes your future. And if you're a young adult listening, you're going to know that your vote is very important for your future and your children's future. So I want to take this time to say thank you so much, Dr. Brookler. I will go straightly to ask Dr. Arlene White, or maybe the last person, one more person to talk before Dr. White. I will ask our own Yucindy to briefly tell us why, if I'm a Liberian in Liberia, why should I vote? Is my vote important? What is the power of my vote? Is it significant? So Yucindy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me acknowledge Dr. Davis. That was powerful. One vote. And I think
Thank
I
you.
could speak on that. And also the strongman syndrome in Africa, for that matter, that kept us behind, kept the continent behind. Dr. White will let you know that he, thank God for him watches over me when I'm taking a lot of risk. He understand risk. I was just in Liberia. Um, let me say this. This particular election, if you are a Liberian listening, I've seen most of you listening, we all have the responsibility at this point to call our people, to speak to our people, to speak to our children, to our parents, to let them know where we stand in this moment in time, in this decade, in this age. Um, I have been out to tell them the power of their vote, that they must vote for their future and not for rice not for $2. But then the question that begs an answer is, um, one of the major player in the political field wife told us when we had a conversation with her, and she said, "You're trying to speak to people. You're talking when you are talking to somebody and telling them the power of their vote, and that person is hungry. That's the same that goes, and this is not to make an excuse, all right? For democracy to flourish, people must first understand the power of their vote. As Dr. just said, they must know what difference the vote can bring or can make. All right. And I think for all of us, it is our responsibility to emphasize that. And how do we get to do that in a country that you have literally no roles? You have a strong man who is strong eyeing our people, where I'm talking to people and I'm calling them around, they're telling you they did not come here to register us, or we don't have a prison to register. Okay, so that means those who understand the power of the vote have to leave their locality and go to somewhere else to register. That means we need transportation. But again, it comes back to, how do we get rid of the strongman syndrome in Africa? How do we amplify the power of one vote? So if the Liberian is listening to me, that one vote will make the president. That one vote will change the starter of the person I work with you every day and becoming a representative that speaks for you. But while we go to that, let's look at a few things that we call when we talk about democracy. All right. What tenet do we look at in an organ? Because the form of government in any country is the way we organize ourselves to lead ourselves. Representation, for example, freedom for the press, freedom of people, freedom to associate, freedom to disassociate. We have justice and you have equity. Do we have that going on in our country? So I like to focus on Liberia for that matter, because this is where I'm from. This is where I was sabotaged as a young woman. This is where I fight. That open up and say, I hope justice will come in October. That is my hope. So we all, and Lucy, it goes to you, we have this conversation. How do we emphasize that? Where do we go to emphasize that? We are talking here. And those who listen to us are about 10% of the population. How do we get to the 80%? We need 50% plus one. How do we get to the 41%? How do we get to them? That should also be a question in our mind. How do we do this while we sit here and do our part? But let me emphasize again, the power of one vote, it can make all of the difference to all of us. So if you're listening, and I see a lot of you listening, call your mother, call your sister, call your friends. We know you need to eat. There's the same in Liberia. We know dry dog is good or dry meat is good. What do I eat until that comes? Sometimes you have to be Joan of Arc. Sometimes you have to be your own, you have to sacrifice yourself for the next generation. So I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I know these are facts. These are things that are happening on the ground. And, what will I be eating before I can take pay, or before the president I need, I desire to have, that will make a change in my country? What will I be doing? Because we know a lot of stuff going on. There are no rules for me to go vote. How can my power to vote make a difference? Yes. Amidst all these challenges, your one vote is important. And so I'm going to switch over to Dr. Allen White, that will come back and maybe just to say a brief statement based on his experiences from other countries, and then what the two ladies, Dr. Davis, have just stated, and our own Lucinda just emphasized, and making sure that we refocus ourselves, especially on Liberia. So, Dr. White, I will give you the floor just to make some few comments, and then later on, you're going to come back to at least let us know from your perspective and your experience the importance and the power of one vote, and based on that, what should Liberians do? What should we be looking at? Because we know people have registered. Most of you have registered. But can you even find your card, your registration card? Because that registration card leads to you voting. Do you have it, or what do you intend to do with it? So this discussion is to reawakening you, to let you know that you, as an individual Liberian, can vote to change your situation. You can't just settle for the status quo and say, "Oh, you're all right, that's how it is." You don't want to be in that situation. So please tune on to this particular discussion. You will learn a lot to know that you're important, you are valued, and you can change your situation. So help us God to make a difference with that one foot. So Dr. White, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank everybody else. Voting is probably one of the most basic and fundamental rights that you can have. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. And it's one of the few things that people that may feel a sense of hopelessness can really utilize this right to make a difference. And I believe this time around in Liberia, especially, there is reportedly almost 2.5 million people registered. It's very simple to me, and I think this is also universal. Are you better off now than you were 4 or 5 years ago? And that's a saying, but it's true. And if you're not, then that one vote is very, very powerful. And I cite a relatively recent example in Africa. If you remember President Jammeh, who thought that he would never lose an election in 2016, he lost. The people voted, and everybody thought that this person, and I will mention him by name simply because he was a dictator, but because the power of the people getting out and voted, they voted against him and they brought change. They were tired of the strong man that we heard earlier. They were able to do it. This didn't happen 100 years ago, 50 years ago. This was relatively recent in African history, and particularly in West Africa. And if you don't vote for the right person, look around what's happening in West Africa right now. You had a coup in Mali. You had a coup in Burkina Faso. Okay. And you have a coup right next door in Guinea. We don't want that for Liberia. I mean, I love Liberia. I'm not a Liberian, but I've been working there for 20 years. And what I keep saying that this is probably the last consequential opportunity, I think, in a modern era to get it right. And that's this election. And that's how important this election is. And that one vote of these 2.5, 2.6 million people that are registered can change the direction in which Liberia is headed. And that's so, so powerful. And that is a universal right, no matter where you go. And I would just cite another case here in the United States. We know how big the United States is, but remember, and this wasn't that long ago either. In 2000, we had Gore versus Bush. It was 600 votes, 600 votes. That was the difference between who was elected president and who wasn't. And that was with over 300 million people. So imagine what one vote will mean in Liberia to change the direction of the country. And now is the time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. White. I was just trying to look at Facebook to see what's going on there. I see people are watching, and this is so important and so relevant right now, especially for Liberians, and that who will be going to the pool. And we know that you may be thinking that you're not important because maybe you live in an area where there are no roads, where you may be thinking, I don't even know where the voting polls are. You may be thinking, we have to walk distances to vote. And don't sit and be thinking where. This group on this platform, on this particular discuss today, the 25th of June, 2023, they're going to let you know what to do and how important you are, regardless of where you're sitting. Like our speaker said, Yusini stated it clearly, Dr. David stated it, and our own Dr. Arlene West stated it. The vote is in your hand. The power to change is in your hand, regardless of the challenges you're facing. please listen to this particular discussion. Uh, we hope that it will help you to see the need that you are important, and this vote depends on your life, your health care, your good rules, your educational system, your country as a whole, your generations to come. So, having said that, I don't know whether, um, uh, Greg, you are hearing us
I'm
and
here.
you
Here,
speak?
yeah.
Okay. So, we're just going to give the floor to our own Gregory Simpkins. He was not able to introduce himself. Maybe you can briefly say who you are, and then you can briefly add your voice to the discussion, because I know at the end of the day, our goal is to explore ways in which we can encourage Liberians, even other African countries, despite the situation they are in, rural areas where they're living, but the importance of the power of their one vote is significant, and it can shape the political landscape in our country. So, Greg, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, let me apologize for having trouble linking in. The internet was a bit wonky for a while. I was moving from room to room. I'm fine now. I can hear everybody, and I hope you can hear me. Um, I am managing director and chief operating officer for a consulting firm called Morgenthau Sterling. We work here in America and in Africa and in the Caribbean, uh, mostly on trade, but we also try to link organizations and governments to the U.S. government, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about. Uh, those Liberians who live in America have a very important role, not just to vote if you can vote, not just to urge people back home to vote, but you're here in a place where you want the government to pay close attention to the election process, not just election day, but the process leading to election. As I think one of the speakers said earlier, there are many ways in between now and the election day that things can go wrong. And I know Dr. White and I have worked on elections in Africa for a long time, and we've seen this, that elections are not necessarily stolen on election day. They can be stolen before. I worked in Kenya very often, and they created election districts that were very large for the opposition and very small for the ruling party, which meant that the ruling party had more opportunities to win seats than the opposition, not registering people to vote. Recently in Nigeria, you've had situations where polls open late. They didn't have all the materials. Uh, there were all kinds of failures to report the voting. And in looking at the election process, those who are here, those Liberians here, have a great opportunity to impact how the United States government looks at things, because it's very important. You look at Nigeria, there were serious problems with the election, but the Secretary of State, 2 days after a troubled election, where even American observers said there were serious problems, congratulated the winner of the election and the loser, saying, "Oh, it was a great process. God bless you, move forward." A year earlier, they'd done the exact opposite in Kenya, where they said, "Well, we're not going to say anything until the Supreme Court speaks." That wishy-washy view of what you should do as a country that's important. I mean, the United States was never a colonizer of Liberia, but let's face it, the United States and Liberia have a long relationship. So what people in the United States government think about what happens in Liberia makes a difference. And if they turn a blind eye to anything that goes wrong, a lot of people are going to be upset, but a lot of people are going to say, well, see, it's okay if the Americans said it was fine. We can't afford to have the United States take that kind of view of Liberia. The foreign policy of the United States is very security oriented. And very often the US government will assent to an election because they feel that for economic reasons or political reasons or or security reasons, well, we don't want to upset things. I'm not sure what calculus they're using on Liberia, but they need to hear from Liberians in America, representing also their families at home, that Liberia cannot be ignored, that you have to pay attention. When there's a problem, you need to say something about it early. You need to try and get it corrected early. If there are court challenges, they should be respected, unlike what they've done in Nigeria. They swore in the president, and nobody's saying anything outside of Nigeria about the court. So those of us here who care about Liberia, and like Dr. White said, neither one of us are Liberian, but we both care about Liberia. And we want to see the United States government do the right thing by Liberia, but they're not going to do it necessarily if there's any pressure to just go along with the program. If they don't think that Liberian Americans care. Those of you who are Americans and can vote, you're important to the members of Congress, the senators and House members. You're important to them, and they'll listen to you. Go to their district offices and tell them how important this election is, so that they'll be thinking about it and preparing for it. And if there are hearings, that they can weigh in on it before this happens, so that we don't have another situation where, for expedience sake, troubled election happens, and the State Department says, well, it's pretty good. God bless you. Move forward. We need to get this straight. So with that, I'll stop.
Okay. We want to say thank you for that. At least if you're listening in the diaspora, for sure, I know most of you are listening, that there's a need to at least speak to the State Department, to your district representatives, to let them know issues issues that may occur or things that are going wrong, especially like in the rural area, whether individuals have the whether they even know their location, whether there was sufficient education, civic education when it comes to the election, whether people know their voting locations. So if you're listening, take note. And this is very important. As you seen it rightly stated, there are a lot of things that are not just really, really out there for people to know what's going on or where they're going to be voting. This is the end, almost in the month of July, and October is the election. So we have a little time to rally around to make sure that things goes right. And if you listen keenly to all the speakers, you have your parents in the different counties in Liberia. Start calling in to make sure that they did register and where they're keeping the registration card. That card is very important. Without that card, you're not going to vote. For them to also know things that they need to do. So we're going to move quickly to our own young person that we have also, Mr. Felix Wilson. So just share his views when it comes to um, the power of one vote and the future of our dear Liberia. Felix, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will first say to everyone out there that's listening, do your homework. And I'm speaking specifically to Liberians, the young and the old, those that are in Liberia and those that are in diaspora. Do your homework. What do I mean by that? Liberia knows what to do. We are talking about the power of one vote. We have voted before. We've had elections, and we elected the current administration. We had a lot of young people to vote. So I'm not going to tell you how to vote because you already know how to vote. You already know what your vote resulted into. And that is because you had the majority. And like Dr. White said, you have to sit down. We have to sit down and look at the past. 6 years and say, has anything changed? Am I better off? Um, that's the easiest way to inform yourself. Now we know there are other things at play, as um, Sister Lucinda mentioned, some other challenges. But I challenge you guys, where we are as a nation, where Liberia is as a nation, requires sacrifice to get us into the developed world, into the community of developed nations. It's not going to come easy. It's not going to come on a silver platter. All right. It's going to take some sweat. We're going to go hungry. We're going to share some tears. But if we do the right thing, we will yield the right results. And like um, Dr. Davis, I pounded Google a little bit just to find a few words around the power of one vote. And there's just three things here that I caught that's very prevalent in an elections time that I think is relevant to us, and I'm going to read those. Um, Elections have consequences. All right. If you are hungry today, if you are jobless today, and you were jobless 6 years ago, elections have consequences. It is your right to vote. You all have the right to vote. No one can take it from you. But if you don't use it, you cannot blame anyone for the outcome. All right. And voting, it says here, is a chance to create change. Well, I would just paraphrase that and say voting is your chance to create change in Liberia. It's our chance. All right. Um, I spoke not too long ago uh, on Father's Day, and one of the evidence that I pointed to to the group was we are 33 years removed from our Civil War, 30 years removed from the Cotonou Accord, and Liberia, can argue, is still worse off than we were before the war, or just after the war, I should say. Um, so we should search ourselves and think about our vote and how we're going to use it come October. Um, I also want to point out it's a sad fact, but it's a fact. One of our own, Reverend Dr. Lloyd, in one of the earlier iterations of this program, this platform, and he provided a historical perspective on Liberia and talk about our glorying days and how we were effective and present on the world stage and back at home. Also pointed out a significant flaw that we, Liberia, is in the Guinness Book of Record as having experienced the worst election fraud in history. All right. And I'm going to try to find that here because I pulled it up. Um, this happened back in 1927. Okay. And at the time, check this out. To you young girls and women who can vote, women weren't allowed to vote then in Liberia elections. They were only men. And according to the record, we had 15,000 Liberians on record as registered voters. Okay. But guess what? The tallying of the results shows that uh, President King at the time received 243,000 votes How is that possible? 15,000 registered voters, 1,680% voter turnout. That's unreal. And that happened when we had so called educated folks in running for office. So I say that to say, as we talk about the power of one vote today, and I ask people to do their homework, I'm not just talking to you, the voters. I'm talking to our present government. Do your homework. I'm talking to our present election commission. Do your homework. Make sure that our folks have free and fair elections. Make sure that people have access to the ballot box, and make sure that every party has a fair chance, right, of monitoring the elections to ensure that they are indeed free and fair. And folks, we don't have to go far to remember the carnage that we experienced from 89 up to 2006. All right. I was there. I experienced it. A lot of us. And what vivid reminder of that situation, and to look right next door to Sierra Leone at what's going on. I saw a clip on YouTube a couple of days ago, blood in the streets. Right, the elections going on, but people are being killed for whatever reasons. I don't have the specifics, but do we want that to come back to our homeland? No, resoundingly no. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to do the right thing, do our homework. And even here in the diaspora in the United States, we that live here need to do our homework. We, those of us who are citizens, need to call our congressmen and women and lobby them to pay attention to Liberia, to provide the help that we need to monitor, help us monitor our elections, and to ensure that that one vote that we are promoting today is meaningful, is effective, and it would do what we all wish it would do and provide us the leadership that we need, we desperately need to take us into the community of the developed nations. Thank you.
Okay, we want to say thank you so much to Mr. Wilson for that. I mean, for what you said. And I'm hoping that the government of Liberia will be listening. The other presidential aspirants will also be listening. And also Liberians here will be listening that we need to do more in the diaspora. And, I think Yacine and Felix can attest to it. I don't know. Our parents were not that very rich. They were not billionaires or millionaires. But I remember when we were growing up, we had our parents that would, pay your school fees and you go into school as a child. I remember when we were in cathedral, we never used to wear like dangling earrings. We had to wear low socks and shoes to school, and we were children. And so, if I am watching this show as a Liberian in Liberia, and for sure we're going to make sure we share it, I will be thinking, why should I vote? Why is my vote important? We want to tell you that your vote is important because we were children when we were children. But right now in Liberia, things have changed. You can be 15 years old instead of your father being the father, not in all cases, but you now are the breadwinner of that family. You're a child. You need to go back to school. You're not at that age to even be dating someone to pay your school fee or to feed your home. But you're only doing it because you don't have it. Because things have changed. Do you want to remain in that kind of condition forever? Is that what you want? So let's look at our lives and see what needs to change. What is around me? What are the issues? What are the challenges? You don't have a school to go to. You don't even have the desire to go to school. And when you're sick, they'll say, maybe someone will say, oh, no, don't mind her. She's in America, enjoying herself. So that's why she's talking to us. We need to start thinking about our country, not your tribe, not who you know, but who can champion your desires, what you need, what your country needs. That's the reason why this October 2023 vote is very important. It is so important that we left everything else. We're supposed to be in the movie, walking somewhere, enjoying our quiet time with our families, but we took the time to be here so that we can tell you and we all can explore ways to let you know how important your vote is. And also to let us know in the diaspora, what can we do? How should we call our congressmen? How we can put some report together, do some research to see what are the obstacles when it come to, even if I have the power to vote, my one vote is important, but what are the barriers that will make me not to be able to exercise that right of my one vote? So that's the discussion. It is for you so that we can change our country. Liberia used to be a country of dreams where other Africans used to come and work, don't want to go. When you travel to Abidjan, they will call us Petit American because our countries, we were not that rich, but we're just satisfied. There was security for you. You don't have to do anything else but to go to school. At the end of the month, that one bag of rice your father will bring it, you have food to eat. Is that what is going on? Do you need a change? So please, this discussion is about Liberia. It's not about a particular political party. It is solely about our country that we all need to make a change. You, the young people, our young adults, and our youth, your vote represents the hope. Your vote represents the aspiration. Your vote represents the dreams for generations to come. So sit down, look around your surrounding. Look at other African countries nearest to you. See the need that Dr. White, whoever is on this call, Dr. White, Mr. Greg Simskin, and Honorable Emmett Fiawu, Felix, who is one of the youngest person, yes, Cindy, Dr. Caroline Davis, everyone is here, not for any political reason, but to let you know that your vote is important, to let you know that you must vote this time. You have to. Amidst the challenges, you must find a way to vote so that your situation can change. So that's why we're here. Having said that, I don't know what Honorable Ahmed Fiawu, whether you're on the call and you're available, but we ask you to briefly tell us from your perspective the power of one vote, the future of Liberia. If not, while we await Honorable Fiawu, there was some question that we sent out, and we got some questions regarding this discussion. We have talked about a lot of the importance, the power, the significance of one vote. Looking at Liberia right now, in this discussion, anyone can answer the question. Do we see, is it the information that have been going out, is this sufficient enough civic education? Are we ready to have an election? Or do we need to do more? Are the citizens in Liberia, and even those in the diaspora that registered to vote, is it feasible for us to have a free and fair election in Liberia? From your perspective, I can maybe ask you, Cindy, and then others can chime in, because she just came from Liberia.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for this platform. I think this conversation is needed. When I returned, I spoke with Dr. White, obviously, and he said, just Cindy, and I'll lay out my observation and my own experience besides just what I saw from afar. And he said, you need to write a report, which I did, but you need to present it here. From Mr. Wilson, words to me, I think that is needed to be done. Here, the fact stands that we have an election coming up in less than 90 days, or about 90 days. So we must be ready. Okay. But one thing to emphasize, election is not an event. Election is a process.
Mhm.
All right. And let me come out quickly, Lucy. I come from different side of the railroad track. I'm part of that 80% who parents literally or family live off the land. My mother is the first to have gone to high school and finish high school. Okay. So maybe my parents are one of those people when 1980 came, maybe dance. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And thought, there were going to be inclusion. Our biggest problem is inclusion. The second biggest problem is education. Democracy cannot flourish without being able to disseminate or process information as to the importance of why you vote. It's like we say, black people die in America. People were lynched. People fought. Lincoln helped to give black people the freedom that they have so they will be able to where they are. Then you get two generations down the line and they don't see the pain that the people endure, at least most of them, while people continue to fight. So from my observation, which I have video recordings, I have voice recording, I have pictures, and places I went, a conversation. Um, it is not, I mean, logically thinking, it is not possible considering, okay, the road condition in Liberia for you to register that many people and cut off date, rainy season, and get everybody involved. So I still think there are people out there that they need to be given an opportunity that their one vote can be context. Because for me, as I told that when I got back, and I told you, Lucy, that I think there's suppression going on, and that's not democracy. So since Washington talk about the process leading to getting an election day, that we have a responsibility, our role as Liberians in the diaspora, anywhere for that matter, we have a voice. We have the greatest democracy in the world, quote unquote, America, the most powerful because they support us, to reach out, all right? And Wilson also took us back to history where we've traveled. And we don't want to go on that road again. I am a survivor, not a victim. I am a survivor. I read it every day. I see it every day. So whether we are ready or not, the question, Lucy, for me is not being ready. What can we do to get maximum turnout vote? What can we do to give the right information to our people? And whether we believe it or not, majority of Liberians cannot read at fifth grade level. I'm saying this. When you leave Montserrat, okay, or let's say Monrovia, and go outside, most of the people can even speak English. If you ask a 14-year-old, how old are you? They will ask you back, what are you talking about? Okay, you have 18 years old who are staying in third grade, in fourth grade, because education in Liberia is not a priority as a nation. All right, there is the study that says your nation GDP per capita and your literacy rate into one. They're directly correlated. And for people to think, because then you have to also look at the cultural effect, where it says you don't question your leader, you don't question your children. As a professional educator, my children are supposed to challenge me. My kids that I teach, they're supposed to think ahead because they are more idealistic than I am. I'm structured to the curriculum. They think outside of the box. So the question is, how do we get to speak to our people in the language that they understand, to understand the values of their vote? That one vote matters. And it's really important. How then do we get this government from Felix explanation to us about the 1927 and GB King when he stole the election with only 15,000 people registered, he got I don't know how many votes. How do we go back to 1985 that it still hangs whether it's true or not? How do we now go there? How do we get our people to go out and stand and protect their vote without them being pepper sprayed or the police, which is, and Dr. Davis spoke about that they are not strong men who are a regime collaborator and they're supposed to be state security or state police or state army. How do we do that? So let's look at our responsibility as Liberian in the diaspora or in the United States who are taxpayer. I have a what do you call it, a voting card to vote. Okay, that's the most expensive card in my wallet that I've ever paid for. It's not a credit card. I paid more than $6,000 to move around. I went to three different locations to register. In fact, one of the locations where is where my father was born, the school that they're using, where we renovated after my family renovated after the war. Okay, they the certain representative, and I'm going to call his name, Roger Doma of District 7, sent his people to harass the people not to register there. So how do we get our people to feel, to stand up for that one vote? And how do we get the rest of the people who the government did not get to get their one vote in? So that should be the question. So ready or not, we have to go to election. This is where it stands. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think someone from River says agreed with you, Cindy, regarding the individual that is 18 years old that cannot read even at a fourth grade level. He said that even some university students are trying because of the lack of proper education. They can even complete writing maybe a paragraph or something like that. I think people are watching what we're saying and they're responding to it. They're also agreeing with us. So let's just go quickly with the next question. We want to say thank you for that. We know that people have personal biases and external influences, and I know that we've already touched touched on our own Greg touched on the aspect of what we need to do in the diaspora, and you've also spoken as to how we need to create more awareness, more education. But we also think that, and someone is also thinking here that personal biases and external influences also has an impact on individuals, whether they are educated or not, on their when it comes to decision as to whether to vote for what. Because if personal biases like political affiliation, as we know, our own personal belief, the propaganda from the media, and all these kind of things influence individual decision. So we know one that we need to do more aggressive outreach and also educate our people, give them the support. Whereas the Liberian View, we even partner with Flomo Theater and find other organizations on the ground. And they went to Kakata, they went to Bomi area and somewhere closest to Bon County. And we're trying to do we've been doing Honorable Greg Simpson is also, Gregory is part of that. Felix is part of it. Our Honorable Dr. Arlene White is also part of it. Even Ahmed Fair, we're all part of this team and trying to do some civic education, helping in our own way possible. And we're even trying to have like a fundraising July 1st, and we're trying to see how we can be on the ground and to help support the effort. Having said all that, I know that there are other. How can we all work together when it comes to personal biases and the other external influences? I think that question will go back to Honorable Arlene White, because of your experiences, and maybe Greg also. Gregory, you can chime in if you want to. How can we, for instance, Cindy, I mean, she's been, I don't know how many times back and forth in Liberia. Not only just going there, sitting in Monrovia, she's traveling, going to various counties and helping to educate her people. But there will be some personal biases, and I know that external influences, because people just feel that, I don't know, people just get immune of the system. You're sitting down, you're not going to school, you don't have a job, things are so rough, but you just, that mindset that this is my political party, and you're not even thinking, what can you share with us that we can use as a tool to help our people in Liberia and even in the diaspora anyway?
Why don't you start?
Well, I think as we kind of alluded to in the very beginning, it's probably the best way to educate people, whether you can speak to them exactly in the language that they understand. All they have to do is look around. I think Monrovia is laden with trash. I mean, what an embarrassment. That's the capital of the country. How can people, I think you can just point to them. I've traveled all over Africa, and there's many people that I didn't completely understand their language. They understood me, but we were able to communicate. And you can do that by pointing and showing things. And when you look around at the country. I mean, the nation's capital is laden. You even had the UN mission folks that came in last year said this was the dirtiest city that they've ever seen. I mean, those are things that you can educate people that this isn't how normal people live. And you shouldn't be living this way. And you can do something about it. One vote counts. Every vote counts. And look, I know it's just like corruption when if that's what you grow up around, that's all you know. So how do you know something else any better? You don't. Any difference. But I think you can articulate, many of you speak the different tribal languages over there, but at least educating the people the way things are, and they don't have to be that way. Give it a chance. What do you have to lose? We've heard that before. Are you better off now than you were before? And I know that's a hard sell, but I think educating people as much as you can, try, use your vote one time, try it, make a difference because it does happen. And that's why I mentioned John May. That wasn't that long ago. Okay. And you talk about strong men. That was about a strong man as you can get. That was a country of 1.6 million people. And those one votes he lost the election because people believed that they could make a difference. So I would challenge the people, and they have the same challenges that the people of Liberia do. And unfortunately, on the continent, we all know that education isn't where it should be. Clean water isn't where it should be. All of those things, people are struggling from one meal to the next. But I can tell you, things are better now than they were then. Why? Because that one single vote made a difference. And sometimes just talking passionate to people and reasoning with them, they'll figure it out. But if they don't have anybody reasoning with them and talking to them and spreading the word, it's not going to happen. But one vote can make a difference. So we have to think creative, do whatever we can to get out with as many people as we can to spread the word. We're doing it too through the diaspora and people we know and people on the continent to try to inform them and educate them, not indoctrinate them, but educate them with what's going on in the rest of the world. The good thing is in Liberia is that social media is one way to educate people. And most people have access to some form of social media, good, bad, or indifferent, they do. And I know the government tries to control a lot of that, but there are ways that you can get the information out to the people out there. Because look, I honestly believe this time around, there's been so much donor money given to Liberia where there has been very little progress, honestly, that donor fatigue sets in. So I would encourage people to use that to make sure that you get out to the voting precincts, however you need to get there to vote so that you have a chance at a future. Because right now we all know that the future is very bleak, with exception of a few well-to-do people in the country. The future for most people is bleak. That's not political, that's a fact. And everybody on this line and everybody listening knows this right now. The average day Liberian struggles day to day for not only school, where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to get my next meal? So everybody listen, things can change. That's why one vote makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. White. Someone is saying that inadequate access to polling station, insufficient or poorly distributed polling station, particularly in the rural areas and underprivileged areas. And now you sit here talking about the power of my vote.
Well,
so I'm going to turn this over to Honorable Fiawu, who I think been trying to really come on. And if you can hear me, can you address this while you introduce yourself? Someone is talking, like you guys are sitting up here talking about the power of one vote, but we have inadequate polling station, insufficient or poorly distributed polling station, and particularly in those underprivileged areas. Now you sit here talking about one vote. What can we say about that? Hello?
Waiting for your other guest to come on. I think he lost his. He's in his car.
Okay, you can go ahead, Greg.
That issue. In rural, because the lack of materials to open.
You're coming in breaking.
I've been in countries, for example, Guinea, Conakry, where polling was before.
We're not hearing you.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. They send people into the back room in this polling station in Mongomo, and it's supposed to be secure, but there are windows that are open, and anybody can come and give you something or intimidate you. You have to look at the polling stations to make sure they're legitimate and that there's a secure place for people to vote. But a lot of the processes we've talked about, our colleague, voting is not an event; it's a process. That's true. That's where those who are educated need to follow the process. And when there's situations like the questioner asked about, well, where is the polling adequate? That's when we need to let the government of Liberia and governments that support Liberia know something's wrong long before the vote. If you wait for the vote and it goes wrong, then what? Nobody wants to do a rerun of an election. Nobody wants to pay. Get right the first. Follow the process. Correct.
You're coming in breaking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know.
The thing of it is,
I think there's something wrong. Greg, we're not hearing you.
how about now?
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
All right. Well, if in America, we generally don't have that widespread poverty where people are wondering where their next meal is going to come from. It happens in cities and towns, but for the most part, Americans are able to make it, even if it's paycheck to paycheck. And Americans aren't necessarily going to be desperate enough to sell for whatever the equivalent of a bag of rice in America would be. But that happens in Liberia and other developing countries, and that's taken into consideration. The other thing we just talked about is education. If people really don't know how to read, if they really can't follow the instructions, how do you know that they know how to mark the ballot? Because I've seen that happen. They're registered to vote. They have an idea who they want to vote for. But when they get in there, they don't know, do I make a check mark? Do I cross out the name? Somebody can tell them the wrong thing and spoil the ballot or vote for the wrong thing. Back in
Not hearing you again.
where they had the hanging chads, where the poll wanted to go to the wrong person. So
Greg, we're not hearing you.
Okay, can I interject, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I heard the sister talk about many of the people cannot read, which is the fact in Liberia. But I think the political parties, they need to be proactive. Proactive in a way that you have flyers, you bombard the airway in the different languages, the different dialects that the people speak. Be proactive. Make samples of the voting cards, the ballot, and all of that. Be proactive. Go into those cities, those villages, those towns, and educate the people so that they are aware. Even if even if you have to educate it in terms of who they're voting for, what the name, what letter the name starts with, or what they should be looking for, those are things where I think the political parties need to be very proactive to to bombard the airway with the different dialects that the people speak, and also to educate them one on one. We have many young people in Liberia that can travel to these villages and towns and just help to educate the people, because if they are not educated enough to know what they are doing, this is how they are misled.
Thank you so much. And I think that that's so important. It's not just for the political parties. It's not just taking your banners and your flag and marching in various marketplaces or going to other state, other counties and showing your flag and people are following you. We've really not seen, maybe others have seen, but I've really not seen a political party in an area educating individuals how to vote. And also, I think also it is the responsibility of the sitting government to be able to educate civic education for their people. It is very, very important. So that means right now, not only talking on Liberian View, but part of the plan that we're going to have is after this election, what can we do next? We need to educate our people. We need to have, a plan, a structure in place. The young people are leaving high school or they are in high school. In other countries, I remember they have what they call national service. So a part of the program that we can put together will be like a national service for our university students, for those who are graduating from high school, that they can go and serve and be paid. Those are different job opportunities that can be open. The government needs to have those kind of programs in place so that the people can be educated, not only because of you as a president, but it is a right to be educated, regardless of where the locations, where they live. They need to be educated, as Dr. Davis rightly stated, in their various counties, in their various clans, they have chiefs, they have different leadership in our country that needs to take the responsibility, not only, for instance, 2023 is election, then we start educating. We're supposed to educate the people that there should be a set program for civic education so people can know their rights and their responsibility, so people can be abused and killed, and they don't know the due process of the law. They don't even know what to do. So right now we're just discussing. I know people who are listening will learn from this. However, it is our responsibility and any sitting government responsibility to make sure that in its entirety that people are educated on the right, how to vote. In everyone in the states, they're not like maybe they have maybe first grade education or whatnot, but they are taught as to what to vote, who to vote for, what is voting, how can you benefit when you vote. That's why you see in America a lot of young people go behind political parties. They are promoting individuals. They are campaigning. They are doing stuff so that they can learn, because their dreams, their aspirations, their hopes for their generation and the next generation to come depends on what they do now. I think that's the awareness that we need to have. Having said that, I don't know whether Honorable Fiawu, you can talk now, because we've been calling you. This is the 4th time. Can you talk now?
He's not on.
So, Lucy, may I say something to the education part? I think civic education should not be just born up into elections in the United States from K1 to 8. By the time our children get to about 7th grade, okay, they already understand the rights and responsibility, not just in America, but they know majority of the major government around the world. what resources is in that country, what form of government it is, what are the history of their voting. All right. So if we only wait for election to
Yeah.
educate our people, then we have failed as a nation,
Yeah.
because education is in Article 6 of our Constitution. It is a constitutional right. That means those who came before, those who are there now, have failed us based on our Constitution. So we need to hold any other government that comes to power. Hopefully, I have a say so in the next government, and I believe we will have change. I believe we have a new president, and I strongly believe so, based on my observation and my interaction just coming from Liberia. From about a year ago, I went to Liberia in 1 year about 3 times. Last June, around this time, most of the people have their walls up. The more we get closer to election, you can see the walls are coming down. So I strongly believe this, but we must protect our vote. And we who know better, we have a responsibility moving forward, okay, to make education a priority and to be focused on so our nation can move forward. And that's where I want to add. And that everything, I'm in an American school system. We give tests in Japanese, we give it in Chinese, we give it in Spanish, okay, to make sure until the kids can get comfortable with English. So we need to make room for our people. There's 16 tribes in Liberia. English, everybody don't speak English. So I will stop here because there are many of us. Thank you. I just wanted to bring that to bear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope we all are hearing it. This is important, and we can make the government to do it. We need to also, like Greg rightly stated, the responsibility of the diaspora. We are here. We've seen the difference, not only in the United States, even Liberians that are in Europe. You've seen the difference when it comes to education. You've seen the difference when it comes to election. You've seen those who are the poor, who are lobbying, who are doing campaigning for governors, for senators, for congressmen. They're all young people. So we also need to build our structure and be able to make sure that the government of Liberia, whoever wins, will be able to do that, because it's very important. So I don't know whether, Honorable Fiawu, whether you're ready to just make a statement, a brief, because we've been trying to get you.
He's having internet problem.
I
His
understand. Yes.
Yeah, it just keep buffering, but
Okay. I
it comes
understand.
on briefly.
So we'll just go to another question quickly, and
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
before we go to the next question, allow me, I don't think we adequately addressed the last question where the person said we're asking them to vote, but there are all these barriers,
Mhm.
right? And insufficient roads and
Inadequate
buildings dilapidated.
inadequate
Right,
access to polling stations,
right.
polling districts,
Um,
and polling stations.
I want to speak to that person directly and let them know it is the responsibility of the sitting government to make those things happen. That said, as I stated earlier, we need all hands on deck. And what do I
Yeah.
mean by that? The election commission is there also, but we have the government that should be able to identify those polling stations that need the help, need improvement, and the organizations within country that are trying to provide that help can also tag up with the election commission to help fund some of those initiatives. But we cannot, there are limitations to what organizations like ours can do, right? We cannot just go into the country and walk to a polling station and say we're going to do this. It has to be channeled through the elections commission. So I just wanted to make sure that person's question was answered, and they're not thinking that any organization can just come in and do whatever they want. Now we've lost Honorable Fairwood again.
Yeah. So we lost Honorable Fiawu again. We're just gonna go to the next question because it's after 6. And this question, I wrote it down because it was very important. It's very important that we all look at it, and be able to speak to it. After all the discussion on this platform, someone is still asking whether one vote really makes a difference, and can it influence the outcome of an election, taking into consideration all the disadvantages, the barriers that we have, whether that one vote can still make a difference. So what we're going to do with this question is to start first with Dr. Davis, and then we'll go to Greg, and then we'll come to Cindy, and then we'll come to Felix, and then Dr. White will be the last to give his response. And the question again is,
Mhm.
does one vote really, really makes a difference? Can it influence the outcome of an election? Having all the barriers to this particular election, different barriers, voter suppression, um, the inadequacy of polling station, especially in poor underserved areas, whether that one vote can make a difference, especially when it comes to the outcomes. So the floor is yours, Dr. Davis.
Thank you. Before I answer that question, I want to say this. The brother talked about um, it is the all of us agree it is the responsibility of the government to educate its people. But what do you do when you have a government who does not and who just don't want to educate their people? They know the reason they don't want to educate people because education is empowering. So I think one of the things that we in the diasporas can do is to support our people back home. And we should hold our government responsible. The people back home should hold the government responsible for its actions. And we here should empower the people back home. Because let's be realistic. A lot of things have happened back home that is just not right. But how many of us stand up to talk? We are here in the United States, in Europe, Australia, wherever we are. We are comfortable, okay? And we are not holding our government responsible. I think one of the things that should come from this meeting today is that we who are on this line and all those in the different audiences that are listening, we should stand up. If we stand up and empower our people, they will be able to stand up. And sometimes when they stand up, there are consequences because nobody's going to support them. And because we have government in Africa and in Liberia especially that knows if they do something to their citizen, nothing will happen. I can give you several instances. So we shouldn't just have this intellectual discourse and go away feeling good. What can we that are here, that are elsewhere, what can we do to hold our government accountable? Recently, I had a friend who introduced me to this, send me a video. And even though the video was something to teach a lesson, this professor went into his classroom. He scanned the classroom and he pointed to one student and said, you get out of my class. I don't need you in this classroom. And the woman was bewildered. And she was like, who, me? He's like, yes. And everybody else was just looking on. Nobody said anything. She asked, what did I do? He said, you did nothing, but I just don't want you in this classroom. All right. So she got up and she left. The professor turned to the class and asked, what I just did, was it right? And the entire class said, no, it wasn't. So he asked the question, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you stand up? You have to stand up for what is true. You have to stand up for truth. Our people in Liberia and in other African countries, they are standing up for truth, but they are bearing some severe consequences. So then what do we do? Many times these people, they feel like they are alone. Okay. So let us take this conversation to the next level. What is the next level? What's going to become of all of this? What are we going to do? How do we hold our government officials responsible? Because if we elected them to do something and they're not doing it, the United States is not a perfect country, but this country has system in place, system for check and balances. We lack that in many African countries, and we are complicit about that. That has to stop. Having said that, yes, one vote can make a difference, because from the presentation that I gave you several examples where of countries, including in Africa, where one vote has made a difference. So let me just say this: the person who's asking that question, don't say there and say somebody else will go vote for me. What will my one vote do? Um, Several years ago, about 6 years ago, my husband and I, we were in Liberia during the elections, and we were talking with family members about the different candidates, and we were just, from what we know, we were just sharing our opinions with them about who to vote for and who not to vote for. And of course, my brother, who is an educated man and an engineer, he was adamant that Liberia had a better hope with a certain leader. And I asked him why. I mean, I just asked why. Why you think that? You know? And he couldn't give any concrete answer, nothing to support it. But everybody was on that bandwagon. And even the educator folks, I don't want to call names, but people with doctorate degree jump on that bandwagon to support leaders that will cause our people to suffer, you know? And my brother kept saying to me, but my vote is just one vote. One vote will not make a difference. One vote does make a difference. You go and put in your vote. It's your responsibility, it's your right, and it is your responsibility. So go and vote, and vote well. I heard I heard Lucy say, vote now. Yes, let us vote now. However, I would say vote sensibly. It is important that our people vote sensibly. Don't The sister said, don't just vote for people who come and give you a bag of rice because they want you to cast your vote for them. 6 years later, have they come back to give you another bag of rice? That should be something to let you know, hey, this is not going to work this time. You can fool me one time and that's on you. But when you fool me the second time, it is my fault. Our people need to vote sensibly. I mean, I can give you history where back after the war, there was a slogan going on in Liberia: you killed my mom, you killed my pa, but I will still vote for you. What sense is in that? So our people, we need the education, and we have to empower them to be able to think logically and think sensibly, so they understand that the one vote is powerful.
Thank you so, so
This
much.
is
Thank
Emmett.
you very much.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Very good.
Yes.
I've been fighting to get on. My name is Emmett Fiawood. I'm an entrepreneur in Washington D.C. for the past 15 years. I have my wife and 5 children with almost like 7 grandchildren. Two of them I've graduated from college. But I'm so proud to be on this talk about Liberia voting processes. If we look in the spectrum of what's happening in Liberia, 2.5 million people trying to vote say they have registered. You have 10, 25 parties running. to confuse the people's mind, setting up these parties at a darn time just to get somebody to vote for you. And after the election, all the party dies away and nothing comes back. I think the election commission is not doing the due diligence toward the people of Liberia, making the requirement very more stringent so that you will not have 25 parties for 2.5 million people compared to America with 2, 3 parties, 300 something million people. I mean, that alone confuses the minds of the people. Suffice to say that the election commission, they need to have the requirement should be more stringent than anything else. To eliminate some of those parties to not confuse the minds of the people. Yes, our people are not educated in this category. I heard some of the parties saying, some of the people saying that yes, to teach the people the rights from kindergarten up to grade. But
We're not hearing you. Okay. So, I'm not hearing- we're not hearing you. No, we're not. Okay, we're not hearing you. No.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. On myself.
Okay, we will go ahead and then maybe you go somewhere and park. We'll give you the opportunity to speak. But I just want to quickly talk about standing up. We need to stand up, put ourselves together in the diaspora and stand up. And one of the questions and concern here is because sometimes you look at, we need to stand up, we need to do this. For the Liberian view, we've been not just talking the talk, but we've been one way or the other trying to apply ourselves in Liberia. And so we partner with other people and we bring up these discussions for us to talk about. But people are thinking like, yeah, we can stand up. But I don't know, you'll be very surprised that we in the diaspora, based on personal interests, tribal interests, political interests, there's a need for us to, how you call it, rethink and really sit down and think about Liberia. I think what we're going to do, we're going to have us put a survey in place to ask some questions as to what people think, then we can all come together and stand up. Because you will stand up if you agree there is a problem. Then we all can say, yes, there's a problem. So do we have a problem? From this discussion, yes, we have a problem. But based on our individual political affiliation and interests, we forget about Liberia in the diaspora. I can say it anytime. And I'm not even afraid to say it. And it's so sad. For your own political interest, you're not thinking about your children. You are not thinking about the next generation. So standing up is very good. Standing up for what? Do we all, in the diaspora, not only in the United States, do we feel that we have a problem? Do we know that we have a problem? Are we aware that we have a problem? How many of us think that way? So that's something that whoever is listening, and I don't know how you want to interpret this, but let's think Liberia. For the first time in your life, if you have never thought about Liberia only yourself, it's sad. So we will stand up, but we're going to look for people who are thinking Liberia, who can list what are some of the issues, the challenges, what is lacking in our country. We got to agree, regardless of which political party you're in, this year, for your children's sake, think about Liberia, my people. So that's my message today, that we need to think and feel and pray for Liberia. Not only sit and say, oh, what kind of job I will get. Man, if you sit here 20, 50 years, you didn't get a job in America, you're not going to go to Liberia to get a job because you're not going to be qualified. So if you're thinking that you're going to vote for people because you want to go there and get a job, that is sad. This day, when you listen to this particular discourse that we're having, know that we are asking you that you really need to go in a prayer room and sit down and think about your country. People go to Ghana. Everyone is running to Ghana. We receive people from Black Americans from Liberia that settled in, Black Americans from the States that settled in Liberia. We have nothing to show for it. We've been struggling from 1920 something to now, but at least we have something, little thing to show for it. What are we lacking now? When can we come together as a nation, as a people, to stand up as of everyone on this particular platform is saying that we in the diaspora need to do something first here, calling our people. Then we in the diaspora, how can we stand up? Like when we stand up for DD, we stand up for TPS, we stood up for different things. But now you need to stand up for your country. If you're not qualified, you didn't learn any skill in America or in Europe, you're thinking that you're going to Liberia to go get a job. That's one of the major issues that we're having. People leave from here with no skill set, no certificate. They go and get a job that they're not qualified for. They cannot speak to, they cannot even organize that particular job, but they are there. So this time around, whoever wins, don't think you're going to get a job that you're not qualified for. You've not worked in the area, but you're voting because for your own self-interest. So that's the issue. And that's the barriers that most of the people are saying here on this particular discuss. On Facebook, even on the Liberian View YouTube page. People come, we sit here, we just talk. And then at the end of the day, we're in chat rooms now. We are all in various chat rooms, chatting. But at the end of the day, we're chatting based on the kind of job we have. So for us to stand up, we need to really sit and think and strategize and come up with some points. Having said that, I'm going to go quickly to the same question, and people can address it differently. They say, does one vote really make the difference? Can it influence the outcome of our election? That one vote. Also taking into consideration all the obstacles. So we'll go to Greg if you're ready.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when we say one vote makes a difference, I think some people who don't understand the political process literally think we mean that it is going to win by one vote that you cast. That one vote, together with the votes of people in your family, your friends, your neighbors, the collection of those one votes together will make a huge difference. And your one vote, if you say, I'm voting this vote, you can somebody else make an informed decision about who they want to vote for. So in that case, your one vote will turn into many other votes because people see that, oh, well, I trust her, and she said that she thinks vote this, and not stay home. I cast the ballot, and if you do that, then that one vote means a lot. But you have to look and say, I'm going to vote this way.
Yeah.
And that
Greg,
one is powerful.
can you straighten your mic? I don't know what's going on.
It's you're not hearing.
Yeah, we're hearing you now, but I don't know.
No, it's. I think that I hear us saying your vote counts, your one vote counts, and I think we have to sometimes explain what we mean by that, because some people may take it too literally, and take it literally they'll lose hope because they won't believe that the candidate is going to win by one vote, which of course they won't. But I hope you heard me. Way that one vote goes now, give other people-
Greg, I don't know what's going on, but I think you're coming in breaking. I don't know.
Your voice is fluctuating.
well, I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry. No problem.
All right, no problem.
Okay. And so the same question goes to Yasini on one vote. What does it really make a difference? Can it influence any outcome of an election?
So let me be crystal clear. Um, um, Dr. David, maybe you, hopefully this is not our last time meeting. I am a voice, not afraid of anything. I am actually the first Liberian woman who have testified at the Congress, anywhere for that matter. I remember Miriam Makimba never went back to South Africa until after the apartheid. I know Ellie never went back to Liberia until after Doe was gone. I've gone back to Liberia. Thank God to people like Dr. White and all of those people. I stand on their shoulders. I speak up. I've been to Washington many times, been to the United Nations many times. I speak up. I've gone to Liberia. I travel place. I was that I've never imagined I would go. That never thought existed in Liberia. One of the coolest things is I learned how to speak Mandala here better so people I can relate to them. It helped a lot. And I will not be quiet. But let me say to all of you that are listening, young or middle age, absolutely. That one vote is 50% plus one. But that one vote that you're casting can influence thousands of votes. When I talk now, people ask me and they say, you're telling us to go for, did you register? If you register, show us your car. Okay. Like I told you, it's the most expensive car in my wallet. Now, I ever own in my wallet. But I thought she was it is worth it for me to the thousands of people that follow me weekly, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 on the air, 30,000 that listen to me weekly or more to understand that if I can leave my children, leave my family, leave my husband, get on a plane, okay, put my life at risk and go places I've never been before. It speaks to the important, how tired this election is for all of us, for the future, for our children and the children. So yes, that one vote means everything. You need 50% plus one. But that one vote is not just a vote, it's symbolic of democracy, the power that you carry, where it says to the future that this vote is an investment for my children, the protection of their education, the protection of their survivorship. So it's not merely a vote. And then hopefully we can talk about maybe next time the costs of vote in Liberia, what it means and what it costs to the opposition, the government, and the people themselves. Because vote is also for sale in Liberia. So yes, we need your vote is very important and it does matter. You matter. That one vote matter. And that in democracy, that is what represents you. It says, I'm voting for you to be my voice, to protect my future, to create jobs for me, to make sure there's healthcare available, to make sure my daughters do not die waiting for $160 at JFK, to make sure my child is not walking the street selling orange and have no future, to make sure that a little girl is not being molested just so she can eat, to make sure that fathers do not look away in shame while government officials meet with their little girls and they have no future.
Mm.
So it matters. Your vote matters. That one vote matters, and it speaks to everything that there is. So I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Cindy. One vote matters. So if you don't vote, that means what is in place that is not working will win. So your vote is important. You see me said it so clearly. We'll move quickly to Felix Wilson. Mr. Wilson, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I don't know how I followed that, Lucinda,
I'm
but
telling you.
that was powerful. Look, a resounding yes, I would say. One vote does matter. And it's very simple. You cannot get the two till you get one. And counting all along, you can't get to 2 million till you get one. You cannot get to that 50% or 50% plus one till you have one. So it does matter. I just wanted to follow that up though and say I like to look at Liberia as the glass half full metaphor and example, only because when I go back to Liberia, I have some of the best times of my life uh, just being home. There's no place like home, right? But my God, folks, it hurts. As much as I love the country, to sit here and talk about the power of one vote, as if to say everything in Liberia is moving along hunky dory, right? That we have a democracy that is working well for everyone. The country is broken. I don't even sometimes I wonder whether it's even a country. And I say this to say I talk to my family and friends who those who are living a somewhat decent life, ably employed. And I always ask them, how are you comfortable not speaking up? How are you comfortable not getting involved? Right? Um, it's time, folks, whether you are ably employed or not, our country needs all of us. I mean, I've seen like the wife said earlier, I've seen so many videos about just the dirt in our streets. It hurts. Come on, folks. We if we love our country, we got to step up. Um, we talk about being unemployed, right? Every day I have friends, colleagues, family calling me with different business ideas about Liberia. You know what I tell them? The country is ripe for just about everything. And that's, it may seem like a great thing to a businessman, but it's sad. It really shows how far we have to go as a country, you know. And to those of you in Liberia who are sitting on the sidelines, one, two, or three of you guys or ladies can form a cleaning company and clean our streets and pay people and earn a living from that. We got to step up, folks. We can't continue to wait for government. And I want to remind you guys, think 6 years. That's what your one vote means. 6 long years. Are we willing to go another 6 years and not see our streets clean? Are we willing to go another 6 years and not see clean public latrines for people to use? Good transportation, street lights, a law and order? Come on, folks. Look at our border crossings. Look at what we have there for people to come into our country. Then we wonder why sometimes we read about drug busts here and there. You know, it's a lot. And just again, I am apolitical. I am very neutral. It's all about love for country. I am not pointing the finger at anyone because I feel like there's enough blame to go around. And we as Liberians must take the most of the blame. We must rally together and try to rebuild our country. I'm going to close on two quotes. And the first one is Roald Dahl. He's a British author. He said, and I quote, somewhere inside of all of us, is the power to change the world. And I'll paraphrase somewhere inside of all of us who were born in Liberia is the power to change Liberia. All right. And then lastly, the late Dr. Miles Monroe, in one of his famous sermons, he said, and I quote, "We are not here to worship the past. We were put here by God to make history." And what better way to make history in Liberia than to exercise your right to vote, but more importantly, get all in, all hands on deck to rebuild our country. Thank you.
That's powerful.
Very, very powerful. Thank you so much, Felix. So what we're gonna do now is 6:33. I'm gonna ask Dr. White to just come in and then give a closing point as to if I'm listening to this particular discourse right now and I'm in Liberia and I'm also in the diaspora, what would be my role? And what do we think someone should take away from the discussion? There are a lot of takeaways today, and it was brilliant and excellent, but just few points as to what people need to take away from this discussion. So we'll start with Dr. Arlene White, and then we'll come to Dr. Caroline, Greg, and then we come to Yacine, and then Felix. Dr. White, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. I've been listening to everybody, and these are great comments. But I wanted to get back. Like Felix said, I don't think we adequately answered one question, and I'll make the point quickly and get in, because I can hear people out there. Okay, I do want to use my one vote. If I can't get there to use my one vote, then my one vote doesn't count. So I don't have the magic answer, but what I do know, and Dr. David said it earlier, when you have a government that may intentionally not want you educated because they don't want you to find where the pole is, because the fix is in, who knows? The point is there has to be some responsibility by the individual voter to find out how they can make that one vote count. We all have, particularly in Africa, they have traditional leaders, they have paramount chiefs, they have church leaders. If you can't find a way to get to the polling station, reach out to these people. Tell them what you want to do. Show me where I can go register. Show me where that poll station is. Take some local responsibility to get yourself informed. That's called empowerment. That's called empowerment. And I think, like everybody has stated, the one vote literally may not mean anything. It's the collective vote that Greg was talking about, is in everybody here. Collectively, think about it. If the person that you wanted to win lost by one vote, and that was because you didn't vote.
Yeah.
Think of it in a reverse way. So this is where the old story is that all votes count, but you got to vote. If you don't play to win, you're never going to win. So you got to get involved. This is your responsibility, and it's also your responsibility to find out where you can vote. You've got 3 or 4 months to figure that out. Do it, take the responsibility, and make a difference. You don't have to have a PhD to figure that out. So take some responsibility, get it done, do what's right for your country, and that one vote collectively will make a difference. That's my final point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. White. It's always good and to have you on this particular platform. So we're going to move quickly to Dr. Davis for your closing point and what you think someone should take away. I know there are a lot of takeaways. It was so brilliant points made. But just for closing, what should someone take away from this particular discussion?
I have 2 points that I want to advance. I'm blessed with 2 sons and 2 daughters. And the other day I was having a conversation about our country with one of my daughters. And I said to her, we are praying. God is going to do something. We are praying. And she immediately looked back at me and she said, Mommy, we don't just need to pray. We need to act. We need to pray and act. And I believe this is the time more than ever before that we add action to our prayers for Liberia. I mean, some of us have been fasting and praying and doing all of that. But this is the time for us to stand and act. And I would suggest and propose to the Liberians that are in the diaspora, and I believe they are watching, let this not be in vain. This is a defining moment. The American ambassador in Liberia, not too long ago, he made a comment which annoyed some people. Obviously, it was going to annoy them because he spoke the truth. Okay? This is the moment for Liberia. One of the things he said, this is the moment for Liberians to stand up. This is the time while we are trying to help our people back home to empower them. I think here, wherever we are, we need to organize ourselves. We need to be more organized to come together as Liberian because there's power in numbers. When we come together and we are organized, I know we are just a little bit sporadic here. Some people doing this, some people doing that. But let's bring our collective effort together to bring about change in our country. And those lay people in Liberia, men and women, boys and girls, you may say to yourself, how can my one vote matter? Mhm. Your one vote does matter. Go and vote. Encourage people, mothers, encourage your children to vote. This is your future. Don't look at anyone who would just give you a fish for a day. Look at people who will show you how to fish. So when you need fish for your family, you are not looking 6 years later for somebody to come and give you fish. Make sure, parents, you are empowering your children and telling them to vote. And because your vote is valuable, because your vote means something, don't just throw it anywhere. Think and think and think. Who is going to change your life? Who is going to make a difference in your life? This time around, in Liberia, we have a saying, is that popularity that we are going to eat? No, that's not what we're going to eat. We want people who will empower you. My husband and I, we have a nonprofit organization, and every year, in addition to other countries, we go to Liberia. I have nephews that are college grads. First of all, can compose a fitting letter, a fitting writing. They can't do that because our education system has been watered down. Teachers have been bribed daily to pass people. So somebody said, I have a law degree. It's all because you know what you did. You bought it, and so you can't defend it. I have people in Liberia that have degrees that don't have a job. Our young people, many of them, they swarm the streets with on these motorbikes that are many of them are dying from. This election, Liberian people, it is important. Our Liberian youth, it is important. Our Liberian parents, it is important. Grandparents, it is important. We want to see a change in our country. We don't want our streets littered with dirt. My kids, other than one of them, they haven't gone to Liberia yet since they came to the U.S. I'm just thinking, okay, if I want to carry my grandkids with me on one of my trips, what are they going to see? So it is for your good, for you to think about your vote because it matters, and vote sensibly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vote sensibly, because if they give you $20 for your vote, you just eat it one day or maybe or 2 days, and it'll be finished.
Exactly.
So what next for you? And so we turn it over to our next speaker, Gregory, to give us what he thinks. That we know that there are a lot of good points that have been made. We know that People are selling votes, but it won't help you. There are a lot of things going on. But Greg, just want to let you know what are some of the things that you need to take away from this discussion. Greg, the floor is yours.
Well, Lucy, I know we're over time now, so I won't take very long. Let me just say this again: that one vote, as our young colleague said, is the first of many other votes. And if you make your determination to vote, you are saying that you want to have a role in Liberia's future. Other people seeing that you're going to vote, that you're determined, may decide that they want to vote. Together, your votes collectively will mean a lot. Moreover, if you're going to vote and you think it's important, you can and should, as Dr. White says, to inform other people. When is the vote? Where am I supposed to vote? Am I registered? Do I have my card? All of these things help each other to cast that ballot. Because if you don't cast it, you're actually casting it in the negative. Because all of those things that everybody says that they don't want to see in Liberia, if you don't vote, what you're saying is, I don't really care. The government can do whatever it wants to do. It doesn't matter to me. This is your opportunity to take a part in the present and the future of your country. Don't miss it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. And so we're just going to go quickly to our own Yasini. Remember what Gregory just shared. Make sure you have your voting paper.
Let me start by saying thank you to Gregory for his sacrifice. He's being human, and Dr. White, because they're fighting for us, for our children. They don't have to do this. To Dr. David, I would love to have more conversation with you and Mr. William. And of course, Lucy is a sister. Thank you for the fight. I think this is one of the most powerful show you have thus far, not to discount all the other ones, to speak to the future. I'm going to give a quick quote on Dr. Martin Luther King that says, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politics, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tell him it is right. I think this is the role we're playing. Let me, in closing, let me say to all of us, politics is the house. Let's look at politics that way. So it's important for us to vote or to participate. In the house, it encompasses the economy, the security, both external and internal. It encompasses education, okay? And it's encompasses healthcare. You think about all that a nation needs to move forward. That's what, because the president or in democracy, those are the people who create the enabling environment for us to flourish. And when those things are not available, the citizens suffer and the nation suffer. So your one vote, you must take back your power. And your power is in democracy, it's your vote. Exercise it, put it in the right place, invest it, use it, stand up. The world will be watching you that day. And we will be out there doing our part. I know I will be there. If I stay there, so be it. But I think Liberia is worth it. Thank you so much, Lucy, for having me. And it was great sharing this platform with all of you. It's an honor. Good night.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we
you.
just want to say thank you to our panelists. We want to say thank you for sharing, and we're hoping that people in Liberia, in the diaspora, that you will listen, and this particular show will be shared more and more. And we're hoping that people, particularly in Liberia, will at least see this as a means of educating, as a means of refreshing yourself when it comes to the importance of your one vote. We hope that this was very helpful, and we're going to see you again in the month of July, the last Sunday in the month of July, and we will continue the discussion. And as our sister rightly said, that we need to take a stand. That means we need to do something. We need to come together as Liberians to, in the diaspora, not only in the United States, to take a stand together, because together there's strength in unity. So we're going to see you again on the 30th of July, and with the same discussion, but at least another episode. We want to say thank you, and you all thank you for your time, and we all say have a good night.
Lucy, thank you too for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. Bye.
Yes. Thank you, though.